Happy birthday to me. It's my birthday, but y'all get the present. Welcome back to Stormin' Norman Says. I'm Stormin' Norman. That must mean I have some things to say. Today is not my birthday, but when you see this, it will be my birthday. And I got an idea for a video I've had in my back pocket for 3 months now, probably. I stole it from another YouTuber. If you ain't stealing, you ain't trying, okay? I was watching a couple months ago. You like my new microphone thingamabob? Let's not get sidetracked. So I was watching another YouTuber a couple months ago, and he did a video. He turned 43, 42 maybe. And he did a video called 42 Things I Wish I'd Have Known at 22 or something like that. So I got to thinking, I am 45 today. And there ain't no way I'm coming up with 45 things this video. Y'all know how I like to ramble. If I come up with 45 things I wish I'd have known at 25, this video would be 2 hours long. So we're going to do 5 things. 5 things I wish I would have known at 25. I got me a list here. Lucky for y'all. Starting off, number 1 thing I wish I'd have known when I was 25. I know it now at 45, but I wish I'd have known it at 25. Not every job deserves a 2-week notice. Now, if you were raised like me, then you were raised to give a 2-week notice. You know, it's the right and proper thing to do. If you find another job, you're going to quit your job. You tell them, hey, I got another job and I'm going to work another 2 weeks and I'll be on my way. The idea being it gives your current job 2 weeks notice to start looking for your replacement or find somebody to replace you. And that, I've had positive experience giving jobs 2 weeks notice. Sometimes more than that I give them. But some jobs, man, maybe it's just the day that we live in now. Things just ain't the same as they used to be back in the day. But I remember I was working at a golf course. I started working there in 2007. Yeah, maybe 2006. I think I started working there in 2006. And about a year after I started working there, the housing market crashed. And you know, it was like a subdivision with a golf course. So the housing thing was a big part of our income. So I got a raise after I'd been there for a year. Then the housing market crashed and I didn't get no more raises. Were done. We didn't get no more raises. Our equipment was getting old. They wouldn't replace it because, we don't have the money to replace it. The equipment was getting raggedy and old. And they got to the point where, if you ever worked at a golf course before, you understand somebody has to mow the grass every day. If they're open every day. We were open 7 days a week. So the crew was on 2 weeks or every other week. So one weekend I would come in, not just me, but the other people that I work with. We'd come in on the weekends, we'd cut the greens, we'd move the cup, and fill up the water jugs, and then go home. It took about 3 hours, 6 to about 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock I'd be on my way home. And we got paid overtime for that. Well, then like I said, the housing market crashed. They didn't have the money. And so they decided, well, we can't cut weekends because somebody has to mow the greens blah, blah, blah. So what they did was they made us have a short day on Thursday. Not Friday now, on Thursday. On Thursday, we went home early so that we could still work weekends, but they didn't have to pay us time and a half for it. And I worked there for 6 years. Now, like I said, I got a raise after the first year, and that was it. So 5 years I worked there, no raise. Who would do that? Who would do that? And then after that 6 years was up, I was like, you know what? I need to go find something else. And it wasn't really just me. I had a girl I was dating at the time just kind of pressured me into it. And I've been wanting to for a while. She just kind of lit the fire. And I found another job. And I went in there to my superintendent and I said, hey, I got another job. I'm going to work another 2 weeks and I'll be out of here. And he's like, well, you can just go ahead and go now. Man, that hurt. You know, I worked there for 6 years, 5 of which no raise, no overtime. Most people wouldn't have stayed that long. And I tried to put my 2 weeks notice in. They're like, oh, well, you can just go ahead and go. Man, I wish I hadn't even done it. I wish I hadn't even put my notice in. So there you go. We're already rambling, starting off number 1. Number 2, mental health problems are more than just depression. You know, we see ads on TV or on Facebook or whatever, and we listen to songs about mental health and whatnot, and it's always about depression, suicidal thoughts, bipolar anxiety, all these things. And I'm not saying those aren't mental health problems, but it encompasses more than that. When I was in the marriage program and we were trying, the thing you do when you first get in there is you got to figure out things that happened in your past that caused you to have this unresolved pain that you're carrying around, that causes you to have insecurities, that causes you to behave in a negative way. And I got to looking back at my childhood and I'm like, there's nothing. Like, I had a pretty good childhood. Like, my parents were not abusive. Nobody, I had like the typical American upbringing. We went to church. Everything was like, there was nothing for me to look. My dad didn't drink. My mom didn't drink. Nobody got beat on. Nothing. Like, there was none of that in my childhood. So I'm like, I just don't understand where I'm supposed to find this supposed trauma that I'm carrying around. But I got to thinking about it, and there were certain moments as I was growing up, not necessarily to do with my parents or anything, other things outside of that happened to me, and I started connecting dots and stuff and realizing that this is why I have such a low view of myself, because of these things that happened to me when I was younger and my relationships with women in my early 20s and so on and so forth, this and that. And I was like, oh, I get it now. So having mental health, I hate to say issues or problems, because mental health doesn't have to be like a diagnosis. It can just be taking care of yourself, or looking back and seeing how you didn't take care of yourself and finally remedying the situation, finally putting the dots together and making a plan to change some things. So mental health is more than just depression and all that stuff. Normal people who walk around every day thinking that everything in their life is absolutely perfect and they're fine probably got some trauma that they haven't dealt with. Number 3, write it down. Write it down. Your memory isn't as good as it seems. So over the last 3 years, 4 years or so, I took up journaling, started journaling, and I can go back in my journal. I think I was just talking about it the other day. The one journal I have that I've been working in since 2022. Almost 3 years. I can go back at any date in the back and see what I was doing, how I was feeling, stuff like that. Can do that. Can't do it past then because I wasn't journaling when I was younger. And I wish I would have been because, I look back on some things that happened in my life, like in my 20s or whatnot, even my teens. I guess you could go back that far. And I think, how well do I remember that? Like certain stories and stuff that I try to remember from my childhood, from my early adulthood. And I go, in my mind, this is how the story went. Like, this is what happened. But is that really how it happened in reality? Because sometimes you can meet somebody that you have a very distinct memory of something that happened with you and them way back in the day, and their recollection of it is totally different than what you have in your brain. And you might be thinking like, am I remembering it wrong or are they remembering it wrong? Like I remember for like over 10 years, I didn't speak to the girl that I dated in high school. We dated for 2.5 years and we just lost contact, didn't talk. And then after 10 years, she found me on Facebook or something. And we were just, talking and catching up. And I was like, you remember that time this happened? And she was like, no, I don't remember that at all. And I'm just like, am I losing my mind or what? So write it down. Even when you're journaling, you think, like, this is a stupid thing that happened to me today. There ain't no point talking about it. There might be a point talking about it. You might have this idea of something that happened in your past. Well, if you have a journal, you can go back and look at it and be like, oh, yeah, that one thing I kind of forgot and left out. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. Write it down. Your memory ain't as good as you think. Sometimes I think about stories from my past and I go, I wonder if I'm remembering that correctly. Number 4, skills. I didn't know how to word this, okay? So this is not my best wording on this one. Skills destroy fear of being fired. So I told you already, I cut grass. I did landscaping, lawn maintenance, whatever you want to call it, for 20 years. Started when I was 21. Well, I cut grass when I was a kid, obviously. Like my dad would take me to people's house, drop me in the lawnmower off, and then leave. And we didn't have cell phones back then. And he'd just come pick me up in an hour or two when I was done mowing. And that's how I made money when I was a young teenager. But when I was 21, well, I was actually not quite 21, but I was almost 21. I got a job with the Parks and Rec department, mowing grass on county parks. And I did that for almost 2 years. After that, I worked for a company that did commercial lawn maintenance. So I would go around to all these different businesses and cut grass at them. Ended up becoming a foreman there. Left there. I think I went to did I go to the golf course after that? Oh, I left there, and a buddy of mine had started his own lawn company, and he needed some help, so I went and worked for him. That was probably about 6 months. I don't know, wasn't long, but it was residential lawn care. And then after that, I went to the golf course. I worked at the golf course for 6 years, doing maintenance on the golf course, cutting the greens, cutting the fairways, stuff like that. Then left there and I went to a dealership. It was actually 7 dealerships, all owned by the same company. And I cut their grass. I cut the grass at the dealerships, cut the grass at the body shop. I cut the grass at the owner, his river house. He had a couple of different houses. He had a penthouse. He had a river house. I cut the grass at his river house. Blah, blah, blah. Left there, went to the retirement community, mowed grass at the retirement community for like 3 years before I left there and went to the job I'm at now. But 20 years, I did it all. I did residential. I did commercial. I did golf course maintenance. I did maintenance on the car dealership. I did at the retirement home, there is all kinds of things at the retirement home that you don't have to worry about nowhere else. Like I can't. You have to be extremely careful mowing around elderly people. You can't just go, hog wild because they're allowed to do. It's their. They live there. Like if you see them coming down the sidewalk, stop, turn your mower off, let them pass by. You're taking care of their house, so they're not obligated to get out of your way. But anyway, 20 years of doing lawn maintenance, I've done it all. Trim bushes, weed eat, edge, mow, irrigation. I've installed landscapes. I've done fertilizer, pest control, all that stuff. Done all that stuff. So when I got to the point where I was working the last, 5, 10 years of doing it, I understood my value. I understood, like, I live in Florida. We're cutting grass all the time here. So, a story goes, I was working at the retirement home when COVID hit. And it was a pretty crappy, it's a retirement home. So they had to take extra precautions. So it was not fun for like over a year. Having to get constant COVID tests and all this stuff. And it got to the point where I'm not going to get political here, but they made it to where you're going to have to get a vaccine if you want to continue to work here. And I was like, well, then I guess I ain't continuing to work here. We're not getting political. You just ain't telling me what to do, okay? And I wasn't worried. Like, the guy I worked with, that was his first job in lawn maintenance. And he had been there about a year longer than me. But that was it. He had 4 years of experience cutting grass. I had 20. I can do it all. My resume speaks for itself. So I knew I could leave that job and have another job before the end of the week. And is cutting grass and stuff like that. So that didn't bother me. I had the skills to make myself not afraid of being fired. Like, fire me if you want to. I have a job by the end of the week. Because any lawn business around here will tell you good help is hard to find. I go in there and flash my resume. They're going to hire me on the spot. So whatever it is you're doing, like, you might have a job now that you don't particularly like, but get good at it. Get good at it. People are always talking about they're afraid of becoming important at work. Become important at work. Because they won't want to fire you because they're like, well, why would we fire them? They're doing such a good job. And two, if they do fire you, who cares? You can go get another job doing the same thing in like 48 hours. Like my job now, I've been working at for 3 years, 3.5 years. And I've been running the forklift that whole time. If my boss were to fire me, who is also my pastor. But if he were to fire me, I'd go get another job driving a forklift. Now, I got plenty of experience doing it now. So get good at what you're doing. Get skills. Even if you don't particularly love your job, get the skills so that if something happens, I'll tell you a funny story. I can't see the timer, but I guarantee you we've been talking too long. When I worked before I started at the Parks Department, I was working with my grandma at this factory that made computer parts. We made not the microchips and the circuitry and stuff, but we made the actual metal enclosures and stuff like that. And I worked as a silk screener. And one day I was helping the powder coat guys mask off some parts. And we had heard a rumor that people were getting laid off. Work was getting slow. It was getting to be winter time. And I was sitting there telling the guy I was working with, but they won't fire us. Like, they need us too much. And I'm telling you, not 1 hour later, I was headed to my truck. I got laid off. Sitting there bragging to the dude about they won't let us go. They need us. And then like an hour later, my supervisor was like, Richard, I need to talk to you. And that was it. Foot and mouth. But get the skills. And then if you get fired or you decide, heck with this place, I ain't putting up with their garbage anymore, you can jump right into another job and have a lot of value that comes along with you. Number 5, learning from your mistakes isn't the same as changing from your mistakes. I wasn't quite sure how to read this, but this is something I've recently been pondering. And I got married to my first wife when I was 22. I think she might have been 19. I think she had just turned 19. And I was 22. We got married. And we were married for 14 months. We got married in December of 2022. Wait, that don't even make sense. We got married in December of 2002, and we separated in February 2004 because it was the same day my nieces were born. Actually, it was the day after they were born. And so we were married a grand total, or married and cohabitating for a grand total of 14 months. Well, yeah, 14 months, give or take a day. And then the divorce was finalized in 2005 or something like that. Maybe 2006. I don't remember. It took a long time. But after that, I thought to myself, well, this is no problem. I'll go get somebody else. Within a couple years, I'll be married again and whatnot. No. I was single for 15 years. And I was 37 when I met my last wife. So me and my first wife split up when I was 23 still. And I didn't meet my second wife till I was 37. So all during that time, I'm thinking to myself, I see what I did wrong in my first marriage. I see what I did wrong. Granted, it wasn't just me. It was both of us. But I see my part, the part I played in it, and what I did wrong. And I'm going to make sure that if I get another opportunity to get married, I've learned from those mistakes and I'm not going to repeat them. Boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. That's why I say learning from your mistakes isn't the same as changing from them. Let your mistakes make a change in you. Not just, okay, I won't do that again. You will do that again. You 100% will, because you haven't changed yourself to make sure that you're not going to do that again. So all the things I said I wouldn't do again if I got married that I did in my first marriage, I did them again. My first marriage, it got to the point where I would come home from work, I'd turn on the PlayStation, and I'd play PlayStation. And my wife would come home, and she would go in the bedroom, or our spare bedroom we had, with the computer, with the dial-up internet, okay? And she would get on the internet, chat with her friends and whatnot, so I'd be in one room playing PlayStation, and she'd be in the other room talking to her friends and meeting her next husband on there. And I said, okay, that was not a good idea. Obviously, you gotta spend time with your spouse or it ain't gonna work out. 15 years later, met my wife, my second wife, my current wife, technically, and everything was fine. When we first got married, I was doing my podcast. Okay, that took up a little bit of a chunk of my time, but not too much, I started going to Bible college a month before we got married. So now that's two things taking up my time. My podcast and my studies at the Bible college. Well, a year after we got married, the Sunday school teacher at church left, and I was already filling in for him whenever he went on vacation or whatever. So my pastor's like, hey, can you take this class and teach it? So I was like, all right, I will. So I had my podcast taking up some time. I had my studies at Bible college taking up my time, and I had to come up with a Sunday school lesson every week taking up my time. And I had to go to work, full time, taking up my time. That didn't leave me with a lot of room or a lot of time to spend with my wife, to take her out on dates, to just sit and watch TV with her. She would beg me all the time to just sit and watch a movie with her. Honestly, I don't like watching movies, but that's neither here nor there. But point is, I devoted myself to these things thinking, well, they're good things. You know, I'm teaching Sunday school. I'm studying about, like, these are righteous, good things, but I still neglected my wife. Just like I did when I was 22, and I neglected my wife with the PlayStation because I didn't make any changes after that. So this time, I've talked Tom Blue in the face about the marriage program, all the things I learned in there, all the stuff I went through and made some changes in my life, recognized why it was I did those things to begin with, to get those out, to make sure that I don't repeat the same mistakes, because instead of learning from my mistakes, I changed from them. At least I hope so. I guess we'll find out if I ever get married again, huh? But that's 5 things I wish I would have known when I was 25. Now that I'm 45. I wish I could say 35. Now that I'm 45. That sure would have helped me in my second marriage. So hopefully some of these things resonate with you. And like I said, it's my birthday today, but y'all get the present of this video and the present of my handsome face. You're welcome. Unfortunately, my birthday is on a Thursday because it seems like, because I was born, and I've never done the math. It seems like if you're born in an even number year, especially 1980, any year that ends with 0, the leap year just gets you. The leap year just ruins. Like, I can't remember the last time I had a birthday on the weekend. Maybe my birthday will be on a Saturday next year. That wouldn't be too terrible. Anyway, let's not ramble on about it. I just wish my birthday was on a daggone Friday or something, you know. But it's on a Thursday, and I'm 45. And I could talk on this for an hour about just life lessons and stuff like, I watched this, one of the reasons I made this channel, I watched this guy on YouTube who like specializes in helping YouTube creators who are over 40. And he did a video one time about why it's good for somebody over 40 to make a YouTube channel, because you have wisdom. You might not think you do, but you have wisdom to impart on younger people. So why not get on YouTube and do it? So that's one of the things I wanted to do when I started this channel, which I guess is what I'm doing today. I don't do it all the time, but I'm doing it today. So hopefully my wisdom that I've accumulated in my 45 years on this planet will help you out. Help you avoid some of the same mistakes and pitfalls I have made. I've been Stormy Norman. I've said things. We'll see y'all next time.